The story begins with a bus navigating a steep road when disaster strikes. The brakes fail without warning. The vehicle spirals out of control, plunging into a deep canyon. The crash is catastrophic, claiming the lives of 21 second-year students from Midorishino High School, along with their teacher, the driver, and the tour guide. The scene shifts to an eerie atmosphere. A voice, laced with a sinister tone, tries to wake someone up. Their exchange feels unsettling. One insists on silence, while the other dismisses it, unfazed by the noise. The mood grows tense as one signals that their break is over. It's time to move. They are on a mission, heading toward a village where that thing awaits. In another part of the village, a fat man, full of excitement, ensures that everyone has been gathered. His subordinate confirms that the villagers are all present, addressing him as Hahadaman-sama. With satisfaction, Hahadaman addresses the crowd, announcing that they are the sealed monster extermination squad, sent directly by the Holy Kingdom. He declares that the village is lucky because a sealed monster crystal has been discovered in an abandoned church nearby. The monster inside could break free at any moment, and when it does, their squad will eliminate it. The villagers, worried but grateful, express their thanks for the Holy Kingdom's protection. Hahadaman then moves on to logistics, stating that the food supplies the villagers collected, along with their homes, will be temporarily used as quarters for the Holy Kingdom's army. Everything must be handed over immediately. At this, an elderly villager steps forward, alarmed. He hesitantly questions Hahadaman's demands, pointing out that they have already been paying taxes and barely surviving. Without food, they will starve, and if their homes are taken, they will have nowhere to go. Coldly, Hahadaman dismisses his concerns, insisting that it is only a temporary arrangement until the monster is dealt with. But the old man refuses to back down. He speaks of the village's long history, of the generations that have lived there since childhood. Leaving would mean wandering without a destination, slowly succumbing to starvation. At this, Hahadaman's patience snaps. Without hesitation, he swings his sword, cutting down the old man in front of everyone. The villagers recoil in horror. Hahadaman, unfazed, reminds them that his squad is acting under divine revelation. Questioning them is akin to questioning the will of God. He feigns disappointment that there are such irrational people in the world, then turns to the rest of the villagers, pressuring them to comply. His men immediately support him, reinforcing his authority and encouraging the villagers to follow orders. They begin gathering the food as instructed. Suddenly, something unexpected happens. A skeleton emerges from the woods, walking toward them. The sight of it sends shockwaves through the group. Hahadaman, irritated, orders his men to deal with it, cursing the villagers for their incompetence. The skeleton wastes no time, easily crushing several soldiers. It speaks with an ominous presence, expressing its disdain for the so-called gods that fail to protect the weak. Instead of salvation, these so-called divine forces threaten innocent lives. Declaring that false gods must be punished, the skeleton announces its own divine judgment, death. Meanwhile, a separate group of soldiers stationed nearby notices the disturbance. Confusion spreads among them as they struggle to make sense of what's happening. One of them, clearly shaken, reports that the skeleton is advancing toward the village entrance. Their leader, Captain Stringer, tries to maintain order, reminding them of their duty as the Holy Kingdom's elite cavalry squad. Fear and panic have no place here, warning that any unnecessary commotion will be severely punished. Determined to assess the situation, Captain Stringer orders his men to investigate the village and report back immediately. A soldier hesitates, pointing out that there has been no movement from the church ruins where the sealed monster is supposed to be. Captain Stringer suspects it's merely standing guard at the village entrance, caught in another fit of rage. He notes that Hahadaman is notoriously difficult to handle, hinting that something unusual is unfolding. As the soldiers reach the village entrance, something feels off. A strange liquid coats the ground, and before they can make sense of it, laughter erupts from the shadows. A monstrous voice taunts them, declaring them its prey. Emerging from the darkness is a bizarre, insect-like creature. The sight of it sends shockwaves through the soldiers, their fear turning into frantic shouts. Without hesitation, they raise their spears and launch an attack. The monster girl, unfazed, mocks their efforts. She introduces her ability, Guillotine Silk, a flexible thread that tightens the more its victims struggle. Anyone caught in it will be dragged to its nest and suffocated. Amused, she glances at the sky, wondering how her allies are doing. One of the soldiers refuses to back down, lunging forward with his spear and unleashing a purification spell. Convinced they've won, the group celebrates, believing they've defeated the creature. But before they can even catch their breath, the monster spreads its arms wide, ready to strike again. Meanwhile, Hahataman stands frozen in front of the undead skeleton, struggling to process what he's seeing. Shock turns to laughter as he scoffs at the idea of a mere skeleton posing a threat. Confident in his strength, he sees an opportunity to gain merit. With swift, precise strikes, he unleashes a brutal attack, chopping the skeleton into tiny pieces. Watching its bones scatter, he bursts into laughter, reveling in his victory. To him, this proves the power of mankind. As a transcendent blessed by God, a sealed monster is no match for him. The world belongs to the blessed, those who wield overwhelming strength. Most of the army captains, including himself, possess these divine abilities, making them the elite rulers of this world. But despite his triumph, the skeleton's existence remains an enigma. Without knowing what kind of gift it possesses, there's always an element of unpredictability. Hahataman orders his remaining soldiers to regroup, but their horror deepens as the skeleton slowly begins to restore itself. Rising once more, it stands tall, completely unfazed. The soldiers can only watch in disbelief. Frustrated but undeterred, Hahataman grips his sword, vowing to tear the undead apart as many times as necessary. The skeleton, unimpressed, locks eyes with him. With chilling finality, it declares its disinterest. Without warning, multiple skeletal hands emerge, launching a brutal assault. Hahataman, caught off guard, feels the cold grasp of death as the attacks pierce through his bloated body. Trembling, he struggles to comprehend what he's facing. The skeleton, in an ironic twist, delivers the final blow with a move called the Life-Reaping Scythe. Without hesitation, it erases Hahataman from existence. Turning away from the chaos, it gazes up at the sky, remarking on the beauty of the moon. To the undead, this glowing night sky is a sign, one that foretells victory for the Night Stalkers. Elsewhere, Captain Stringer waits impatiently. He asks about the messenger's return, but the response is dismissive. The soldiers feel they've been too lenient with the villagers. To speed things up, they plan to use their trump card, threatening the children they'd taken hostage. If the villagers don't comply, executions will follow. Stringer reflects on the increasing frequency of sealed monster appearances. As protectors of the Holy Kingdom, their mission is clear: exterminate these creatures before disaster strikes. The villagers should be grateful for their intervention. Without them, destruction would be inevitable. Curious, Stringer approaches the crystal seal, reaching out to touch it. Before he can make contact, an unseen force shoves him back. A furious voice cuts through the air, ordering him not to lay a hand on it. Stunned, he stumbles, demanding to know who dares challenge him. Turning around, his eyes land on a young boy standing before him, wearing a calm, confident smile. Rage builds inside him as he shouts in frustration, demanding to know when the boy arrived. The soldiers eye the young man suspiciously and demand to know who he is. He remains calm, studying them before firmly stating that they need to withdraw. This is their territory. A soldier notes the boy doesn't look like a villager, making Stringer even more uneasy. Pressing for answers, he gets an unsettling response. The boy warns them to worry about themselves first. Annoyed by the remark, one of the soldiers charges at him, furious at the disrespect. They won't tolerate anyone mocking the Holy Kingdom's army. Just as they try to seize him, the ground suddenly shakes. A massive golem bursts forth, sending soldiers flying. The young man, now perched on top of the creature, shouts the command to attack. Chaos erupts as Stringer scrambles to regain control. He yells for a change in formation and orders the magic squad to start chanting containment spells. But before they can finish, the young man launches a rock projectile, sending more soldiers sprawling. Despite their best efforts, the golem is simply too big. Panic spreads through the ranks, with terrified soldiers realizing their weapons are useless. Some try to flee, screaming that swords and spears have no effect. Stringer grits his teeth, frustrated, and barks at them to stop running. He quickly shifts focus, commanding the magic squad to halt the golem's movements. Ice magic encases its massive limbs, slowing it down just enough for them to strike. Seizing the opportunity, Stringer rushes forward, slashing at the immobilized beast. The golem shatters into pieces under his blade. Laughing with pride, Stringer boasts about his victory, declaring that nothing can withstand his sword. The golem was never a threat, just an oversized nuisance against God's blessing. But his confidence quickly fades when he notices something unsettling nearby. A strange creature, an eyeball with tufts of hair, watches him with an eerie grin. Before he can react, the young man suddenly launches himself at Stringer. His body refuses to move. He's frozen in place. Desperately, his magicians rush to his aid, using their spells to restore his mobility. Just in time, he manages to dodge the incoming attack. The golem and the strange monster glance at the boy, questioning why he let his target escape. They offer to step in, but he dismisses them coolly, instructing them to deal with the other soldiers instead. Stringer, now more certain than ever, realizes this young man is working alongside the monsters. He must be responsible for the recent attacks. Letting him go isn't an option. Determined, Stringer activates a firebomb, smirking as he hurls it toward the boy and the golem. It's his secret weapon, a move meant to catch his enemies off guard. By pretending not to be a mage, he baits them into underestimating him, only to strike when they least expect it. As soon as they try to evade, he plans to deliver the finishing blow. But the moment the flames hit, Stringer's confidence shatters. The attack completely misses. The boy has already dodged, effortlessly. It doesn't make sense. The timing was perfect. There was no way he should have avoided it. Confusion takes hold as Stringer watches him move unharmed. Something is off. Everything should have gone according to plan, yet this guy is untouched. His mind races. Is it a blessing? Some unknown ability? The boy exhales, casually remarking that the attack was dangerous. He didn't expect Stringer to be able to use magic too. Stringer clenches his jaw, mind racing. He's never seen an ability like this before, but if it only allows dodging, there's still a way to win. Stringer conjures multiple fireballs, catching the boy off guard. Without hesitation, he prepares to launch them, knowing they can't afford to waste time. If they delay too much, the allied monsters might step in, making things even more complicated. Originally, he only meant to capture the boy, but if he has to lose a limb or two to get the job done, so be it. As Stringer charges forward, both the golem and the floating eye monster react with concern. The eye monster decides to stay back while sending the golem, Dayan, after them. Meanwhile, Stringer relentlessly hurls fireballs at the boy, forcing him to dodge constantly. But with every step, Stringer closes the gap. There's no way the boy can keep avoiding them at this distance. Pushing forward, Stringer smirks, confident that he finally has the boy cornered. The boy sprints toward a door. A dead end. Panic sets in as he bangs on the door, pleading for someone to let him in. Stringer follows with steady steps, assuring him that there's no escape this time. Apologizing in advance, he makes it clear that he won't let the boy run away again. Fear takes over as the boy trembles, begging him to stay back. Stringer tries to reassure him, promising that he won't die immediately. The fire from his sword will cauterize the wound, stopping the bleeding. But as he moves closer, the boy continues to plead, his voice shaking. Then in an instant, everything changes. Just as Stringer reaches him, the boy turns the tables. Acting terrified was nothing but a trick. Before Stringer can react, the boy pins him against the wall and repeatedly drives a blade into his back. Shock washes over Stringer. He doesn't understand what just happened. The boy quietly apologizes but continues stabbing. Gritting his teeth, Stringer gathers his remaining strength, channels his power, and lands a forceful punch, knocking the boy away. Gasping for breath, he steadies himself, glaring at the boy with fury and confusion. He demands to know where his loyalties lie. Is he siding with the monsters? Who is he? What's his true purpose? Before he can get an answer, an overwhelming shadow looms over him. The golem has arrived. Stringer barely has a moment to process before a massive fist crashes down on him, smashing him deep into the ground. The boy turns to the golem, offering praise for its perfect timing, and the golem basks in the compliment with pride. The battle is over. The young man, the supposed enemy, is none other than the main character. The monsters fighting alongside him, his classmates. As the dust settles, a group of people steps forward, eyes filled with respect. Curious, the hero glances at them. His skeleton classmate explains that they're villagers. He had told them there was no need to thank them, but they insisted on expressing their gratitude for being rescued by a knight. The hero chuckles, amused. He has no idea who this knight they're talking about is, but he wonders if the villagers are afraid of them. With a shrug, he walks toward a large crystal, pondering who will be next. His classmate jokes about melting whoever's inside. Deep in thought, the hero reflects on their situation. They don't belong in this world. To the people here, they are sealed monsters, enemies of God. The one inside the crystal is no different. If they leave him, the church will execute him the moment he wakes up. In this world, survival means fighting. Breaking free from his thoughts, he steps toward the sealed crystal, placing his hand on its surface. A smirk forms as he welcomes the one inside. To the other side of the world? To the class of second-year Reincarnated students, Section C. Outside a grand building, a guard greets a knight, acknowledging his hard work on the recent expedition to the frontier. Colonel, the knight, nods and requests an audience with the Pope. The guard grants him entry, placing full trust in his sword. This is the Church of the Holy Kingdom of Belfine Carolina. Inside, Colonel steps into a dimly lit room where an old man lies in bed. The man weakly recognizes Colonel's presence, having waited for him. Colonel apologizes if he disturbed his rest, but the old man dismisses the concern, eager to hear his report. This man is King Pinanteru, the leader of the Holy Kingdom's church. Colonel begins his report, explaining that the mission was completed as per Lady Ashley's oracle. The sealed monster in Gudo has been eliminated, and Stringer is now heading east to Nobilia. Hearing this, the king acknowledges the swift execution of the task, just as expected. He expresses his satisfaction with Colonel as his appointed successor, believing that the kingdom is safe in his hands. Noticing Colonel's hesitation, the king questions him. Colonel admits he feels the Pope overestimates him, doubting he can match King Panon, who once stood alone against 1,000 men. The recent battle was brutal, costing many lives. The king chuckles at his self-doubt, reminding him of his victories, defeating monsters and repelling countless attacks since becoming successor. To him, Colonel's strength is undeniable. With a grin, he suggests a training session. Colonel is caught off guard but quickly lights up with excitement. However, a concerned maid interjects, reminding the king that he retired from battle 3 decades ago and shouldn't push himself too hard. The king simply laughs, amused by the worry. He turns to Colonel, questioning whether he finds it absurd for an old man to train him. Colonel hesitates, but the king insists. Before taking his next nap, he wants to practice a little. Accepting the challenge, Colonel helps the king out of bed. The two make their way to an open training ground, surprising Colonel with its vast space. The king explains that this is a place where they can fight freely without holding back. He instructs Colonel to draw his sword. He braces himself, trying not to let guilt hold him back from fighting an old man. But as he prepares, something feels off. He hears the king's voice, but his eyes fail to locate him. The presence that was there moments ago has completely vanished. Before Colonel can process it, the king warns him, if he won't attack first, then he will. The intense training begins, and several hands attack him from underground. Colonel lunges forward to attack, but Panon moves his bed away in an instant, completely avoiding the strike. Shocked, Colonel struggles to comprehend what just happened. It seems impossible. Lord Panon had been bedridden for so long, and everyone assumed he had retired from battle. But now, witnessing his speed firsthand, Colonel realizes the truth. Panon isn't just strong, he's a living legend. Stories of him defeating the 7 ruling dragons alone, once sounding like myths, now feel completely real. Faced with his overwhelming power, Colonel's body reacts instinctively. His legs tremble and fear grips him. He can barely process what's happening, let alone fight back. His thoughts are interrupted as multiple shadows of Panon appear before him. A powerful spell, enveloping fire circle, begins to take shape. Colonel wonders if he has already fallen into a trap. Suddenly, Panon speaks, calling out the name of another technique, Spectral King's Fall. Confused, Colonel glances down, his eyes widening in horror as he spots a stream of ghostly figures rising toward him. They are the lingering spirits of Panon's past enemies, staring him down, ready to strike. Panon warns him to be careful or risk being crushed. Reacting quickly, Colonel activates his Imperial Shield at maximum strength, but before he can fully grasp what's happening, Panon's hand is already at his throat. He calls it a pity. The sudden attack leaves Colonel completely off guard. His vision blurs as his consciousness begins to fade. In his final moments of awareness, he notices something strange. The specters disappear. Confusion floods his mind. What just happened? His body feels heavy, and darkness takes over. When he regains consciousness, he finds himself lying on a bed. A girl stands beside him, explaining that his sudden collapse had everyone worried. From their perspective, he had simply been standing near Panon's bed before dropping unconscious. Still dazed, Colonel tries to make sense of it all. Colonel asked about Panon, eager to know what he said. The girl hesitates before recalling something strange. Lord Panon claimed he never even moved. The words leave Colonel in disbelief and he heads outside. If Panon hadn't moved, then what had he been fighting? An illusion? No, illusions have telltale signs. Temperature shifts, distorted sense, a paralyzing poison. Unlikely, the sheer force, the specters, the relentless attacks. None of it adds up. The more he searches for answers, the further they slip away. But one truth is clear. His greatest enemy wasn't Panon's techniques. It was his own fear. He had panicked, let excitement cloud his judgment, and allowed his status as the next holy knight to breed overconfidence. With the succession crisis worsening and threats closing in, he realizes he's far less prepared than he believed. If this continues, the future looks bleak. Colonel tries to clear his mind, but a group of cloaked figures confronts him. They don't hold any personal grudges, but they make their intentions clear. His luck has run out. He's going to die here. Colonel sighs, unshaken by the threat. The mock battle with Panon may have left him with more questions than answers, but it was an invaluable lesson. It forced him to confront his own weaknesses. He readies himself for the fight, knowing now what he must do. More than strength, he needs experience. He needs to push himself into harsher conditions, to expose himself to real danger. If he is to inherit the future of this country, he can't afford to hesitate. With unwavering resolve, he prepares to strike. He will crush every obstacle in his path. After taking down all the attackers, Colonel barely has time to catch his breath before some guards rush over with urgent news. It seems their forces have been targeted once again. Colonel asks if they can handle it, but the guards shake their heads. The situation is more serious than expected. It's about the expedition team. The moment he hears that, his focus sharpens. They've lost contact with Striner. The entire team is missing. His mind races. This isn't just another routine problem, it's shaping up to be the ultimate test. Without wasting time, he orders the guards to inform the formation commander immediately. They need to act fast. The scene shifts to a different world entirely, where a new student is being welcomed. A powerful seal breaks, and a dragon emerges. As it regains awareness, confusion takes over. Moments ago, it was on a bus. There was an accident. By all logic, it should be dead. So why is it still alive? Is it a ghost? No, that doesn't feel right. Then the real shock sets in. Looking down, it notices the long, sharp nails, scales covering its body, a tail swishing behind it. Panic hits. It has turned into a lizard. Nearby, the hero and skeleton watch, unfazed. They assure him that everyone goes through this at some point, though that doesn't exactly help calm him down. The hero decides to take charge. First, he needs to figure out who this guy is. The best way. Just ask. Before he can get an answer, the eye monster approaches, questioning the lizard's identity. But the moment she gets too close, panic takes over. Without thinking, the lizard swings, landing a solid punch right in her face. She's sent flying, shrieking in shock. Desperation fuels the lizard's thoughts. Nothing makes sense, but one thing is clear. He has to survive. He won't die again. Not after coming back to life. His sheer strength surprises those around him. The hero warns him not to lose control, but in his berserk state, the lizard barely listens. All he knows is that he has to keep fighting. Determined to survive, he unleashes his dragon breath, ready to destroy anything in his way. But before he can do any real damage, ropes shoot out, restraining him. The other monsters work together, keeping him locked down. The eye monster uses her magic, her gaze draining his strength. A powerful blow leaves him unable to move. Completely immobilized, he hears the hero's voice. The words cut through the chaos. They aren't enemies. They're all in the same class. The hero tells him to look closely. Doesn't he recognize his face? Something stirs in the lizard's mind, a feeling of nostalgia. That face, it's familiar. Slowly, memories resurface. He realizes, this is Guy. Calming down, he mutters the name, still in disbelief. Of all people, he never expected to see Guy, even after reincarnation. Guy, recognizing him as well, smirks. There's no mistaking it, the scar on his forehead proves it. With a laugh, the lizard finally accepts reality. If Guy is here, then things just got a whole lot more interesting. He decides to properly introduce himself. He's Storm Glenn, second year Class C, attendance number 10, captain of Team Furious War Assault. But most importantly, he's Gurren Takahashi. Takahashi, a proud delinquent, has always called himself the strongest in the region. On his journey to prove it, only one obstacle stood in his way, Guy Endo. Back in the past, Gurren had challenged Guy to a duel, but to his shock, Guy refused. It was the first time anyone had ever turned him down. Frustrated, Gurren demanded an explanation, wondering if Guy was simply scared. But he, unfazed, repeated what his grandfather had told him. Martial arts are for training, not for pointless fights. If he ever used them recklessly, he wouldn't be worthy of his grandfather's teachings. With that, Guy walked away, leaving Gurren standing there, unsatisfied. But Gurren wasn't one to give up. He knew that if he could defeat Guy, the undefeated champion of Jiu-Jitsu, Karate, Kendo, and countless other tournaments, he could truly call himself the strongest. Yet no matter what he tried, Guy wouldn't accept a fight. He even resorted to bribery, offering rare autographs and other favors, but nothing worked. Then one day, inspiration struck. He called Guy to an old school building and made a proposal, an endurance contest using only their heads. No hands, no feet, just headbutts. That wouldn't break Guy's promise, right? Guy chuckled at the persistence but agreed. The moment the contest started, Guy struck with full force, warning Glenn that if he lost, he'd better not bother him again. Glenn, determined, glared back, ready to prove himself. They clashed over and over, their stubbornness fueling the fight. But in the end, Glenn collapsed to the ground, bruised and beaten. For the first time in his life, he had lost. Back in the present, Glenn still struggles to grasp the bizarre situation. He understands that they've all been reborn, but why is everyone a monster? His classmates from different clubs have all transformed, one into a golem, another into an evil eye, a martial artist into a skeleton, and a craftsman into an arachnia. He can't wrap his head around it, but more than anything, he's baffled by one thing. Why is Guy still human? It's ridiculous. Guy, however, has no answer. He simply woke up like this. Glenn complains, envious of Guy's luck, but he quickly shuts him down. In this world, being human might not be as great as it seems. He gestures toward the monstrous bodies around them, explaining their advantages. Agility, strength, survival skills. A human body could never match up. Glenn listens, but he isn't convinced, until Guy reminds him that his dragon man body is far superior to a human's. Not long ago, he even breathed fire. With that thought, Glenn tries again, proving his raw power. But Guy smirks, claiming he's still stronger. Glenn refuses to back down, boasting about his strength, but Guy cuts him off. In an instant, he draws his sword, pressing it against Glenn's throat. The confidence drains from Glenn's face as he quickly apologizes, calling it a joke. He asks how Guy pulled that off, and he simply responds, "It's because he decided long ago that he would never lose." Their conversation shifts to Guy's twin sister, Miu. Glenn remembers her name, and Guy explains how she freed herself from the crystal on her own. But things weren't as simple as they seemed. More people had reincarnated, yet Miu was no longer human. They had been traveling together when they were attacked. Guy remembers it clearly, the moment they came for Miu. The vampires had been waiting for her, calling her the Vampire Lord's bride. They captured her right in front of him, laughing as they discarded Guy, tossing him into a valley like trash. Powerless, he had lost consciousness. When he woke up, she was gone. Miu had reincarnated as a vampire Tyne, and he had failed to protect her. The memory still burns. If only he had been stronger, maybe she wouldn't have been taken. Maybe he wouldn't have lost everything. His grandfather was gone, and Miu was all he had left. Now he has only one lead, the name Dande. No matter what, he will find this Dande and rescue his sister, even if it costs him his life. A skeleton among them speaks up, pointing out that they aren't the only ones being hunted. The Holy Kingdom sees them as sealed monsters and wants them exterminated. There's no negotiation. Wherever their kind exists, the Holy Kingdom sends its forces to wipe them out. Their hatred runs deep. Guy takes in the information, already thinking ahead. If that's the case, they need to be smarter. They have to outmaneuver the Holy Kingdom, rescue their comrades, and build their strength. Right now, Class 2C stands alone without allies. This world is cruel, but even if there's no safe haven, they need a place to belong. Meanwhile, deep in the woods, a girl runs for her life. Chasing her, a group of men grins wickedly, eager to capture her. She knows she's running out of time. If they catch her, it's over. Desperate, she cries out for help. Suddenly, she stumbles forward, collapsing right in front of Guy's group. They barely have time to react before the men arrive. One of them, riding a massive pig, sneers and demands they hand the girl over. Guy stands in silence, watching them closely. The men continue their threats, completely unaware of what's about to happen. The evil eye moves quietly, creeping toward the pigs. With a single spell, it works its magic, charming the creatures into remembering their wild nature. The pigs hesitate at first, but then something shifts. Memories of their former instincts flood back. Their riders were nothing more than food. Without warning, the pigs turn on their masters, knocking them to the ground. The terrified men scramble to escape, but it's too late. Their own mounts tear into them, finishing them off before disappearing into the forest. The evil eye grins, satisfied with its work. The others look on, impressed. Glenn even recalls a scene from a movie where pigs were used for corpse disposal. After the chaos settles, they turn their attention to the girl. Guy kneels beside her, noting her long ears. A thought crosses his mind. Could she be an elf? After a while, the girl starts waking up, but the moment she sees them, fear takes over. It's not surprising. Guy and his group still look like monsters, and even an elf girl would be terrified in this situation. Luckily, there's a standard trick for handling moments like this. Guy steps forward, keeping his tone calm as he explains that he's a monster tamer. At first, the girl looks completely shocked, but he reassures her, pointing out that all these so-called monsters are actually his friends. They're not dangerous at all, just docile and well-behaved. Hearing that, the girl instantly bows and apologizes, admitting that she's never seen a tamer before and didn't mean to cause trouble. Guy just laughs, telling her not to worry about it. He gets that she was caught off guard. As she watches him, thoughts race through her mind. He took down the red feather like it was nothing. Tamers must be way stronger than she imagined. It's incredible. And now, here he is, casually talking to monsters like it's completely normal. But there's no time to dwell on it. She needs to focus on this guy. Meanwhile, Takahashi, clearly suspicious, wonders why she was being chased. Guy thinks it over and figures it's probably for kidnapping. She looks well dressed, so she's likely from a good family. The elf girl suddenly calls out to Guy, bowing deeply and urgently begging him to follow her without asking any questions. Without hesitation, they start running. As they move, Glenn questions whether they can really just follow her like this and wonders if it wouldn't be easier to leave her behind. Guy, unsure of where to go next anyway, decides to follow her lead. Glenn, feeling uneasy, points out that something seems off. She looks like an aristocrat, and the whole situation gives him a bad feeling. Guy smirks, teasing him for being scared. Eventually, they arrive at a large Western-style building deep in the forest. It looks abandoned and in ruins. Before they can get any closer, arrows suddenly fly toward them. A man steps forward, warning that they can't move any further. Guy barely dodges an arrow and shouts in alarm. The man, leading a group of knights, orders them to stop, making it clear that anyone who crosses this point will be treated as an intruder in elf territory. He commands his knights to shoot again, but before they can, the elf girl steps forward, quickly announcing that they're not enemies. The man finally takes a good look at her and realizes who she is. Amin explains that she was being pursued by the Akabin Brigade. She then tells him that Guy saved her. Not only that, but she reveals that he is a monster tamer, and the creatures with him are all under his command. She asks for this message to be passed on to Deirdre-sama because she wants to introduce them properly. The elf knights hesitate, unsure of how to handle the situation. Then, the doors creak open, and a voice calls Amin inside, but there's a condition: only the tamer is allowed to enter. Guy turns to his friends, assuring them that he'll be back soon. As he steps inside, Amin warns him to be careful and mind his manners from this point on. The moment they enter, Amin immediately falls to her knees and bows deeply. Before them, a woman sits on a chair, staring coldly. Her expression sharpens as she asks why Amin is still alive. Guy is taken aback. The two girls look exactly the same. Amin hesitates, but after a moment she admits the truth. When the Akabane brigade chased her, she was terrified. She didn't want to die. Tears well up in her eyes as she begs for forgiveness, but at the same time, doubt creeps into her voice. What right does she have to cling to her life? No excuse can change the fact that she failed. Her voice cracks as she collapses to the ground, calling herself unforgivable. Deirdre's expression hardens. Without hesitation, she kicks Amin, looking down at her with disdain. Her voice is sharp as she demands to know what should be done when a decoy refuses to accept its role. She doesn't hold back, striking Amin again, furious that she forgot her purpose. Amin was supposed to be captured in Deirdre's place, meant to buy time for her escape. Guy, unable to just stand by and watch, steps forward and catches Deirdre's wrist, stopping her. He tells her to calm down. Blaming Amin now won't change anything. The knights immediately react, stepping forward and ordering Guy to move aside. Before the situation escalates further, Amin speaks up, quickly explaining that Guy and his monsters are strong. That's why she thought they could help. Deirdre's gaze sharpens as she processes that. She realizes just how powerful Guy and his group must be. Then she asks him if he even understands who's after them. The answer is chilling. The Akabane Brigade, the most powerful band of thieves out there. A powerful group, including 7 gifted members, has defeated Gandal's army, and Gillian, the Elf Kingdom's usurper, is allied with them. Deirdre, unimpressed, doubts Guy's ability to oppose them and orders Amin to take her own life. As Amin hesitantly lifts the blade, the door bursts open. Elf knights demand answers, but a man named D'Amato steps forward, smugly revealing he's there under Gillian's orders to retrieve the princess. The knights draw their swords, but a chilling realization sets in. They don't know what happened to their lookouts. D'Amato laughs, relishing their unease, and smugly declares that the elves outside have already been dealt with and the entire mansion is surrounded. He declares that the princess has no means of escaping now and insists that surrender is her only option. Then, in an even colder tone, he tells her that all the elves outside have been eliminated. Deirdre grits her teeth, frustration building inside her. D'Amato casually adds that if she surrenders and comes quietly, he might consider sparing her life. He claims his only job is to deliver her to Gillian, nothing more. She immediately calls it out as a lie. D'Amato keeps up the act, reassuring her that she'll be spared, but she knows better. To her, his so-called promise is nothing more than a dressed-up death sentence. She understands exactly what's coming. Not just the king, but every last one of her blood relatives will be executed in a grand display. It's meant to signal a complete shift in power, wiping out any trace of the previous rule. The so-called restoration of the kingdom is nothing but a forced takeover. She refuses to let them use her like this. If she allows it, she'll become nothing more than the tool that ensures Siege's reconstruction never happens. The knights keep pushing, trying to convince her that surrendering is the better option. They argue that keeping rebels alive is too dangerous, that Gillian is too smart to let something reckless like that happen. They insist that the princess will survive, but D'Amato points out something even darker. While she knows Gillian started the rebellion, the public knows nothing. According to the story they're trying to spin, the former Elven king of Suzerio ruled with cruelty, hoarding wealth for himself. Eventually, disgusted by her father's corruption, Princess Deirdre supposedly rose up against him, joining forces with Minister Gillian. Together, they defeated the evil king, and in the aftermath, she would marry Gillian and help establish a new kingdom, a perfect fairy tale ending. Hearing this, Deirdre starts trembling, not out of fear, but out of pure rage. They actually expect her to go along with this. Even though she refuses to accept it, D'Amato dismisses her resistance. He tells her that her opinion doesn't matter. All that matters is that she stays alive. They'd already have a plan to make sure she cooperates. A special poison, non-lethal, just strong enough to subdue her. All she has to do is stand beside Gillian as his wife. Deirdre shakes with anger. Do they really expect her to stand next to the man who murdered her father and pretend he's some kind of hero? There's no way she'll let herself be a part of this disgusting scheme. D'Amato suddenly bursts into laughter, clearly amused. Furious, Deirdre demands to know what he finds so funny. He just smirks, noting that despite everything, she still hasn't given up. But it doesn't matter. Her only allies are the few people standing beside her. That alone is enough to seal her fate. Before he can move any closer, the Knights of Sweria, the Elven warriors, step in, making sure he doesn't lay a hand on the princess. The Clay brothers, 3 elite swordsmen, immediately launch into action. Using their signature triangle-slash formation, they strike with precision. Deirdre feels a surge of hope. Landing such a powerful attack right at the start is incredibly lucky. No assassin has ever survived this technique. It's designed to be inescapable, no matter how skilled the opponent is. If they can take down D'Amato first, the rest of the battle will be much easier. He's obviously the strongest, so if the 3 brothers can eliminate him quickly, they can handle the rest. The 3 warriors charge at D'Amato, their blades aim to finish him in one swift move. But then he reveals his trump card, his unique combat skill, 4 hands. Against 3 attackers, he has 4 weapons at his disposal. D'Amato grins, eager to put on a show. Activating his 4-handed Grace Moon transformation, he counters their attack with ease, striking down all 3 warriors. He sneers at their strategy, mocking them for thinking such a simple trick could defeat him. With an arrogant smirk, he questions what kind of guards they even are before slashing at them again, determined to finish the job. Meanwhile, Guy watches the battle unfold, quickly realizing the unfortunate situation he's stumbled into. An assassin is targeting a princess, and somehow, he's been dragged into it. He weighs his options. Should he step in and save the princess, or side with the assassin? But neither party has earned his trust. The smartest move would be to walk away and leave them all behind. But there's a problem. He can't risk letting anyone who has seen his face escape alive. Deirdre suddenly calls out to him, declaring that she's hiring him. Guy raises an eyebrow at the sudden change of heart, reminding her that she had previously warned him against unnecessary involvement. But she quickly responds that the situation has changed. Reading his expression, she clarifies that she can't offer anything in return. Guy, however, has his own conditions. First, he wants to know the location of the vampire hideout. Second, he wants any information on those who are aware of the sealing crystal's whereabouts. He doubts the elves' intelligence network has anything useful, but Deirdre assures him that if he can just buy them some time with his monsters, she will tell him everything they know. Without hesitation, Guy calls out to his army. His creatures swiftly cut through the enemy guards, creating chaos on the battlefield. D'Amato watches with amusement, openly mocking the weakness of Deirdre's protectors, but she meets his arrogance with defiance, warning him to stay away from her. He smirks, entertained by her hatred. To him, the stronger the woman, the greater the reward. Before he can move any closer, Guy slides into position between them. Irritated, D'Amato demands to know who he is. But Guy remains calm, casually complimenting D'Amato's skills before stating that he's simply a hired mercenary. His patience wears thin. He gives Guy one chance to step aside. Unfazed, Guy apologizes, then clarifies. D'Amato's opponent isn't him. Right on cue, Glenn drops down from the rooftop, finally making his entrance. He had been waiting for his moment, and now that it's here, he's more than ready. Scanning the battlefield, he asks for confirmation. Are these the enemies? Guy nods, pointing out that D'Amato is likely the strongest among them, and probably the leader. D'Amato sighs before letting out a chuckle. He had sensed something unusual in the air, but now that he sees the reality, he finds it amusing. Just a lizard, that's Guy's trump card. A mere beast that pulls a carriage. And yet, Guy actually went so far as to hire him. The realization makes him laugh. Glenn isn't fazed by their arrogance. He's seen it before. Mockery, underestimation, fools acting tough. Glenn the Storm. No matter the world, it's always the same. If left unchecked, people like this take whatever they want, trampling everything in their path. Someone has to put them in their place, and he's more than willing. Meanwhile, a girl from the clan lunges at Guy. He blocks her attack with a sigh, scolding her for striking without warning. She shrugs, arguing that since everyone else is fighting, they might as well join in. She knows exactly who he is, but Guy isn't interested. Instead, he bluntly asks if she's a woman. She confirms it, demanding to know why it matters. Guy simply states he doesn't like killing women. Scoffing, she challenges him, sneering as she mentions charcoal Jabi and taunts his calm demeanor. She warns him that the mansion is sealed, no one will hear a thing. Guy smirks, throwing her words back at her. Not a single mouse will escape tonight. For her, today is going to be unforgettable. Meanwhile, outside, chaos begins to unfold. Berser is excited. They've been called in to assist the elves, and it looks like the entrance is under siege by bandits. They briefly debate whether they should step in, but it turns out to be unnecessary. Evil Eye is already on the scene. She moves fast, delivering a flurry of 48 powerful monster kicks to Papati, who is perched on a rooftop. Papati quickly realizes that even the elves have managed to tame monsters, but he refuses to fall so easily. He slashes at Satoshi, knocking her to the ground. As she looks up, Papati lands beside her, using his cloning ability to throw an axe at her. The blade grazes her cheek, and for a moment the sensation of being cut overwhelms her. She struggles to locate him. Papati warns her to stop resisting, claiming she's only making things harder for herself. Meanwhile, Guy and Jabi continue their fight. Guy considers himself lucky. This is a rare chance to go up against the infamous Akabin Brigade. Jabi lunges at him again, but Guy manages to defend himself in time. She had assumed that, as a tamer, he wouldn't have much skill in actual combat, but now she's realizing that he's more capable than she expected. Still, to her, it doesn't matter. She's confident that the outcome won't change. Their mission success rate is absolute. With a cold grin, Jabi raises her hand, showing off the number of people she's killed. She stopped counting after 200, and now she's eager to add Guy's name to the list. Then she points his attention elsewhere. Glenn struggles to catch his breath as Guy checks if he's okay, but Glenn never expected D'Amato to be this strong. D'Amato taunts him before attacking, but his strikes fail to cut through Glenn's tough scales. Realizing brute force isn't enough, he slams Glenn into a wall. Meanwhile, Jabi smirks at Guy, warning him not to get distracted before landing an explosive strike with gunpowder. Rikri acknowledges Jabi's skill, while Jabi herself confidently declares that taking out the Tamer was too easy. D'Amato agrees, thinking Glenn was just as simple to eliminate, and they turn their focus to the princess. Deirdre, furious, questions if the monsters will hold back the bandits as her last guard steps up to protect her. In a distant memory, monsters reflect on how different this world is, with life being far cheaper than in their original one. Berser wonders if they were sent here because they had become monsters themselves. Glenn, who has fought many before, starts to question if he can truly kill, realizing that justice doesn't matter, only survival. Back in the present, he rises, glaring at the bald man before him, ready to tear him apart. D'Amato is shocked. Glenn should be down after taking a diamond strength attack, but Glenn isn't just any lizard. With a swift motion, he unleashes his dragon claws, striking D'Amato repeatedly and knocking him back. Jabi, watching in disbelief, can't understand what's happening. Frustrated, Glenn demands to know how long Guy will pretend to be unconscious. Guy suddenly rises, furious, cursing Jabi before landing a powerful kick that sends her flying. Turning to Glenn, he agrees they need to take out the bandits together. Glenn summons Purge the Filth, engulfing Jabi and D'Amato in dragon's breath, leaving nothing but bones. Amidst the destruction, Deirdre steps forward, praising them for wiping out the worst bandit group. She acknowledges their strength, realizing that even a simple tamer shouldn't be underestimated. Guy expresses his condolences for her fallen subordinates, at least relieved that she survived. Staying composed, Deirdre states that as long as she is alive, nothing else matters. Preserving royal blood is the priority, and any necessary sacrifices are insignificant in comparison. Glenn finds her words arrogant, especially in the presence of those who died for her. Guy also wonders if this is what royalty is really like. With that, Deirdre orders them to leave and escort her to her father. Before they go, Guy demands to know if she has any information about the elves' crystal or the location of vampire hideouts. She smirks and confidently denies knowing anything. At that moment, both Glenn and Guy realize they'd been tricked. Frustrated, Guy raises his voice, furious. This information was supposed to be their reward. But Deirdre remains unfazed, coolly explaining that she never made any specific promises. She was desperate and offered what she could. Instead, she offers money as compensation, stating that, as royalty, she will do whatever it takes to reclaim the throne and restore Sweria. Suddenly, the air shifts. Deirdre is pierced by a sword. The attacker is none other than Gandalf. The elf mages cry out in shock, unleashing their magic as crystals shoot toward him. One of the mages rushes to Deirdre, demanding to know why Gandalf did this after being so loyal to the royal family. Gandalf then reveals the tragic truth. His daughter had been sacrificed as Deirdre's double. She was his only family, and he could never accept her death. Seeking revenge, he orchestrated assassinations, leaking information to the bandits, and planned to kill Deirdre that very night. He declares that the cursed royal bloodline must not continue and takes it upon himself to end it. They should be grateful, he claims, for the justice he has delivered. The mage is stunned. He had believed Gandalf's daughter died an honorable death, and that Gandalf was fully dedicated to his work. He never suspected the depth of his pain or the guilt he carried. Now, as Deirdre lies at death's door, she admits she is not fit to lead. A figure steps forward, apologizing softly to Amin. Her voice trembles, and both Glenn and Guy watch, confused. With shaking hands, Amin reassures Deirdre that she has nothing to apologize for. She's just glad she could help. Still breathing, Deirdre turns to Amin with determination, promising that she will live on her behalf, and that Amin no longer has to worry about family affairs. Then, shifting her gaze to Guy, she apologizes, admitting that he got caught up in their problems against his will. Finally, she reveals the truth. She is the real Deirdre. The realization hits hard. They never truly escaped Sweria. Their location had been leaked. There was a traitor among them. To counter this, Amin and Deirdre had switched places, and Gandalf unknowingly killed the wrong person. Filled with regret, Deirdre insists they must leave before more enemies arrive. She carries the weight of those who sacrificed themselves, and she refuses to let their deaths be in vain. She will survive no matter what. Afterward, Guy escorts the elves back to the village where their allies wait. Though they are now safe, they have no leads on their missing comrades. But luck is on their side. The very thing they have been searching for has just appeared in town. In a place where monsters cannot enter, Guy ventures alone into the town square. Standing before him is the crystal. Within it, a humanoid figure, just like him. His eyes dart around, checking for any lurking soldiers, but there are none. He activates liberation, and the crystal opens. He is shocked as he recognizes the figure as Akina.
Here I am, know it's been a while. I was in denial about my love. Here I stand, I know I walked away. Had to find the person I